Okay, so you know how it is, sometimes you just don't have the time to really dig into those
Uh,
massive, important books, right?
yeah, totally. Those huge, like, foundational texts, they can be daunting.
But we all want to understand those big ideas, right? Like the ones that have really shaped how we think and see the world.
Exactly. So that's where we come in. That's what this whole deep dive thing is about.
We're going to grab those key insights and kind of distill them down for you.
Like an express lane for knowledge.
Yeah, think of it that way so you can be in the loop without having to, spend weeks getting lost in the pages.
Absolutely.
So today we are tackling Nietzsche and specifically Thus Spake Zarathustra.
Good one.
It's one of those books I think a lot of people feel intimidated by, right?
Go for sure. It's dense.
Yeah. And we're going to focus on the prologue because it really lays the groundwork for everything that comes later.
It's like the overture, sets the stage.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
picture this. Okay, you've got this wise figure, Zarathustra. He's been up in the mountains for like years just thinking.
Yeah, in solitude.
Yeah. And he's coming down now to share what he's figured out.
And the prologue kind of encapsulates the whole book.
Right. It's like a little roadmap.
Yeah, you get the Superman, the rejection of like otherworldly stuff, and this whole idea of personal transformation.
It's all packed in there, right?
All right there in the prologue, so it's key to understanding the rest.
So let's jump in here. Zarathustra comes down, and the first thing he says is about the Superman.
Right. He just comes right out and says it.
Yeah, no messing around. He basically says that the Superman is the meaning of the earth.
Which is huge, right? It's like a total shift.
It's a bold statement. Why do you think he starts with that?
Well, Nietzsche is all about challenging those prevailing beliefs. The ones that were dominant in his time.
You mean like religious dogma?
Exactly. The focus on the afterlife. All that Zarathustra is saying, hey, we need to reorient ourselves.
Back to the earth.
Right. Remain true to the earth and ditch those super earthly hopes. He even calls the people preaching those hopes poisoners.
Wow, that's pretty harsh.
It is, but he's making a point. You see, Nietzsche believed that focusing on the afterlife devalues this life, the one we're actually living.
So it's like we're not really paying attention to what's right here in front of us?
Exactly. It's life negation. You're putting all your eggs in the afterlife basket.
And that's where his famous God is dead declaration comes in, right?
Right. It's not just about the decline of religion. It's a cultural and philosophical turning point.
So in this new landscape, the biggest defense is against the earth itself.
Exactly. You're prioritizing something intangible over this reality we have.
So the Superman is like the answer to that.
Right. It's about creating meaning in a world where there's no longer this divine authority figure.
Okay, so let's dig into the Superman idea a little more. What exactly is it like some kind of evolution of humanity?
It's not so much physical evolution as it is spiritual and philosophical.
Okay, so more about how we think.
Yeah, he's talking about someone who's gone beyond nihilism.
Nihilism.
That belief that nothing really matters, there's no meaning.
Right, that life is
There.
meaningless.
Which Nietzsche saw as like a direct result of the death of God.
Okay, so the Superman is the antidote to that.
Yeah, he represents someone who creates their own values even when there's no preordained ones.
And Zarathustra describes the Superman as a sea that can like submerge this great contempt.
Right, the hour of great contempt.
Yeah, that's an interesting phrase.
It's a key idea.
What does it mean exactly?
It's that point where you become so dissatisfied with everything, even things you used to value.
Like your own happiness even.
Yeah, your reason, your virtue, they just seem shallow and inadequate.
So it's like a total disillusionment.
Yeah, and from that comes a longing for something more, for something that actually justifies our existence.
And Nietzsche's saying that this feeling is necessary.
Right, it's the catalyst that pushes us to strive for something greater.
Interesting. And, it makes me think Nietzsche himself went through periods of real dissatisfaction.
Yeah, with the values of his time,
So this idea probably came from his own introspection.
Yeah, like he felt there was something fundamentally missing from societal norms.
So he's looking for those who are kind of on this path already, right?
Hmm?
He lists out all these characteristics of people he admires.
Yeah, it's a fascinating list.
What kind of person is he drawn to?
It seems like he's really into people who have this kind of overflowing, generous spirit. He talks about people who are lavish with their soul, who give freely without expecting anything back.
Like those people who volunteer their time or, are just always helping others.
Exactly, and they're even embarrassed by praise,
They don't want the recognition.
Right, it's like they just can't help but give because they have so much inside.
Hmm.
And he also likes those who act boldly, who take responsibility for shaping the future, even those who challenge their own beliefs.
So people who aren't afraid to question things,
Yeah.
even their own deeply held beliefs.
Yeah, they have this inner strength and a real zest for life.
It's like they're self-reliant and don't need external validation.
Exactly. And then he contrasts that with the last man.
Right, the last man.
It's kind of a warning, a cautionary tale.
What's so bad about the last man?
He represents what happens when humanity loses its drive, its ambition, its will to overcome.
Like that giving up.
Yeah, the last man just wants comfort and security and this bland equality.
No one wants to stand out.
Right. No one wants to lead or follow. They all just want the same things.
Zarathustra actually says, no shepherd in one herd.
Yeah, powerful image, right?
It is, so he sees the Superman as like the opposite of that.
Exactly. The Superman is about embracing life's challenges, striving for something greater.
And Zarathustra feels like it's his mission to wake people up to this right.
Yeah, he wants to teach them the sense of their existence, which he says is the Superman.
When he uses this really striking image, he compares the Superman to lightning out of the dark cloud man.
It's powerful imagery.
It is, but he also realizes that he's kind of different from everyone else.
Yeah, he feels misunderstood. He says he's like something between a fool and a corpse in their eyes.
Which makes his task even harder, right?
Oh, absolutely. It shows how difficult it is to communicate these radical ideas.
And then there's that part where he's carrying the corpse and meets the buffoon.
That's a really symbolic scene.
What do you make of that?
Well, the corpse could represent the past. You know, all those outdated values and beliefs that are weighing us down.
Like things we need to let go of.
Exactly. And the buffoon is interesting because he actually warns Zarathustra.
Warns him about what?
About the people who cling to those old beliefs, the good and just, and the orthodox. He says they despise Zarathustra.
Because he's challenging the status quo.
Right. He's a threat to their way of thinking. And the buffoon even suggests that the only reason Zarathustra wasn't attacked was because of his association with the corpse.
Because he was seen as already humiliated.
Yeah. So it's like foreshadowing the resistance and misunderstanding he's going to face.
It's like he's starting this journey knowing it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it sets the stage for a real struggle.
So we've got this goal, the Superman, and the warning of the last man. And then Zarathustra introduces this idea of the three metamorphoses.
The camel, the lion, and the child.
It's a pretty cool concept.
It is. It's like a roadmap for self-overcoming.
So tell me about these stages.
Well, the first stage is the camel, and it represents the spirit that takes on burdens.
Like those societal expectations and duty.
Exactly. All those things we're told we should do.
But Camel just accepts it all.
Yeah, it's guided by the principle of thou shalt.
So it's about conforming to the norms.
Right, but then we move to the lion.
And the lion is different how?
The lion fights for its freedom. It says nay, even to duty itself.
So it's about rebellion.
Yeah, the lion isn't content to just carry those burdens. It wants to break free.
It wants to create its own values.
Exactly. Nietzsche calls it a formidable assumption. It's the work of a beast of prey.
It's not afraid to challenge those holiest things.
No, the lion wants to see through the illusions and find its own liberty.
So the lion is all about that powerful nay.
Right, but then comes the final stage, the child.
The child seems kind of unexpected after the fierce lion.
It does, but it's essential. The child represents innocence, a new beginning, a fresh start.
So it's not just about tearing things down.
No, it's about creating something new after you've freed yourself from the old constraints.
And the child is described as this self-rolling wheel, this holy yay.
Yeah, it's all about embracing possibility and approaching life with a sense of playfulness.
So we got the Superman, the last man, and now this roadmap for transformation.
It's a pretty compelling progression.
It is. And the prologue also gives us a little insight into Zarathustra himself, you know, his struggles.
Yeah, after his encounter with the buffoon, he retreats back to his cave.
He wants to be with people, but it's hard for him.
It is. He wants to share his ideas, but he knows it's going to be difficult to find people who are ready to hear them.
Even when he's trying to be clear.
Yeah, and that oscillation really shaped his philosophy.
There's that quote about suffering being the fleetest beast to bear you to perfection.
Powerful stuff, and it seems Nietzsche really lived that, you know?
Yeah, his sister said he wrote the first part of Zarathustra during a really tough winter.
He was struggling with his health and feeling isolated.
But he kept walking and thinking, and that's where these ideas came to him.
It's like they were born out of his own struggles.
And it's interesting that even though he wrote it pretty quickly, the book wasn't well received at first.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't get it.
Which must have been really discouraging.
I imagine so.
So let's wrap up here. What are the big takeaways from this prologue?
Well, we've got this idea of the Superman as a potential for humanity, someone who overcomes nihilism and creates their own values.
And that's contrasted with the last man, who's just complacent.
Right, and we have the three metamorphoses as this path towards self-overcoming.
From carrying burdens to breaking free to creating something new.
Yeah, and we see Zarathustra's own challenges, which show us how difficult this journey can be.
It's a call to really examine our values and strive for something greater.
Exactly, and this prologue sets the stage for all the complex discussions that come later in the book.
It gives us a framework for understanding Nietzsche's thought.
It does.
So as you go about your day, think about what burdens you might be carrying.
What things are weighing you down?
And what would it take for you to find your inner lion and say nay to those things?
And once you've done that, what new game could you create as your inner child?
It's in asking these questions that the real deep dive begins.
It does.
Join us next time for another exploration into the ideas that matter.